Put your red shirt on and a brown coat too. Everybody's joining the crew. We got just one ring, let we rule them all. Hope people remember your towel. Get your Uru feathers and your Middle guns. A sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Use Valerian steel if it will get you to come. To the pit, tank. To the pit, tank. The Rocky Mountain pit tank.
Hi, I'm Guy,
Hi, I'm Alex.
and this is Geek Tank, another show without the Troy ending thingy on it. So, here we are.
Here we are.
How controversial do you want to get?
I don't know. I mean, sort of talk about what geeky things we've done. I mean, we did a geeky thing together
We did.
in a minute.
It's been
We
a while.
watched Macross Plus, the movie.
We did, and we had a lot of discussion about, like, specifically the dub. And I've been, you bring up some very valid points about the way that the dub is done, and it's interesting because I think there's this old school belief between dubs and subs,
right?
That does exist because of a very, very old tradition in anime, which is very different. I mean, like, this is not something I've seen in a lot of other fandoms. I've seen things similar, but first of all, tell me a little bit about what you think about the Macross Plus dub.
Oh, I really like the dub. Like, well, Macross Plus is my favorite Macross by. Honestly, the rest of the Macross I can take or leave. Or I'm actually like, oh my god, what is this? But Macross Plus I really enjoy. I've shown it to other people. I had it all 4 on Laserdisc and watched it several times. For a while, it was set as something that I would put on in the background, and I would almost always put, especially in that instance, I'd put on the dub because I'm not reading subtitles. I'm like cleaning up and doing dishes and stuff.
Right.
So I really, the Macross Plus dub, which came out in what, 1995 ish, was probably like the best dub I'd ever seen, and it still ranks up there. Like, I've watched some other stuff dub too since then, but like before that, I mean, like the only other real good dub that I can remember seeing that was actually good was Akira.
Right.
And then of course, we loved the Fist of the North Star dub because it was just so bad. Just
that's
so bad.
That's a different kind of thing.
So bad it's good, as opposed to, wow, this is legit good.
Right.
And so, no, I really enjoyed the voice actors they got. I really enjoyed the, like, it was, you watch a lot of anime, you get where their inflections are, what's going on and everything, and the subtext and then the voice acting. But it's a lot easier as native English speakers to, with good performances, go, oh yeah, that's Doug. That was deep, for you cue into that subtext a lot easier. No, I really enjoyed it. The dub is, and and then watching the movie itself was a little bit weird because I hadn't seen the OAVs in so long that I was like, was this scene in the OAVs? Oh, this scene was not in the OAVs, and because they did have to trim a lot because they did add a few other things in. I have to say that I was really disappointed they took out the one sight gag. Spoiler alert. They've got the sight gag where Bowman rescues Myung, and then like the next shot is like floor, clothes,
right,
and everyone universally I've ever seen it says, "Oh my god, no way!" And then like it goes to like the Isamu, the rival in this particular love triangle,
right,
like in bed going, and they took that out. I was like, oh shucks,
right, in
'cause we
favor
were
of
watching
more
like 2
nudity
minutes
of her.
But it was just like, I just thought it was just funny. Yeah, have you watched the dub yourself, Guy? I don't know.
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't hate it. I mean, it's not bad. It's just it's interesting because, and of course, this came out in '95, and I think we got our hands on the dub shortly after it came out. So,
Yeah,
like,
if
it
we grabbed
wasn't.
it on Laserdisc, we absolutely had the dub at the same time. It's just flip the disc,
Yeah,
if I remember well.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and so, and I've got the laser discs too, and but I don't prefer that because we've always sort of been that way. By the way, hello Brent, just making sure I say hi to you.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been thinking a lot since you said it. I've been kind of thinking about this because it is a long-standing tradition in a way to diss the dubs from the sub crew, so to speak, and it's not something I see in current versions of the anime crowd
Hmm.
in the same way. Do you know what I mean? Like now you end up with sort of an almost an elitism to some degree with it, as opposed to before where we had a reason why we didn't like dubs. They were
Yeah,
all the North Star, and none of them were funny. You know?
yeah, they were often bad
Yeah.
because they weren't using established voice talent.
Right.
There wasn't, I mean, like so many people were just so new to it. Of course, they're not going to be as good as they are going to be later.
Right.
Um, and then it was also like it was fairly obvious they were going to go with they were kind of going with bottom of the barrel, and not necessarily like in talent, but like they're trying to get stuff as cheaply as possible. They're trying to get it to the audience as cheaply as possible.
Hmm.
Capitalism, all that, and that they didn't really care about the talent because it was all about this is new and cool and sparkly.
Hmm. Yeah.
Buy it, buy it, buy it, because you can't get anything else.
I think the
Um,
most interesting thing is we now have in anime something similar to a phenomenon that we've been having in Trek for a long time.
hmm,
And that is you're getting people into the system now who were raised in that field,
right.
right? Star Trek now has Trekkies that are actors.
Hmm.
This has been their lifelong goal as an actor to make it to Star Trek.
Right.
So when they're on stage and they're on camera, there you can see the love
Hmm.
in what they do. Like these are Trekkies. They are so into what they're doing. They are diligently pushing the correct buttons on consoles because they read the technical manual 20 years ago. And the director doesn't even know what in the hell they're doing, but they are definitely navigating the ship to wherever because of that.
They're doing the business.
Right, they're doing the right stuff because they clearly were Trekkies. And you're getting now that same thing, that same phenomenon. We're getting voice actors who are now old enough to be in anime and dub the anime just like they watched when they were younger.
Right.
So now there's love in the dubs,
Yeah.
which is not something you had in the very beginning. You had a whole bunch of voice actors who were like, "We're doing what? What is this? You
Yeah. Or
want me
like,
to scream? Why?"
yeah, they're just paychecking it, which is get it.
Right,
Um, no,
right, but
nowadays, like I don't watch a lot of anime anymore. I just don't.
yeah, I don't either, really. I mean, there's
And
my shows, and
yeah, I like the most recent one I've watched that I hadn't seen before. Was recommended by a friend. I was named Vampire in the Garden. It's on Netflix, and I watched it and I enjoyed it. But one
Mhm.
thing I did wind up doing was that I was like, which voices do I like better?
Right.
So when I was watching it, like 10 minutes, and I'm like, okay, well these are obviously kind of the main characters,
Mhm.
and I like kind of like backed it up. Let's listen to these four main characters. Okay, let's listen to it again in English. Which ones do I like better? Okay, I'm going to do Japanese, which is what
Right.
I did.
That's fair.
Um, yeah, and so I was like, okay, and that's because it's Netflix. You just toggle on the menu, you're good to go. No having to flip the laser disc or anything. And but to be fair, when I played the Fist of the North Star game, which whose name I don't recall, which is too bad because it is the best Fist of the North Star game, and not just because almost every other Fist of the North Star game is dog shit on fucking paper plates. Let me look it up because I'm going to plug it again. PS4. Hokuto no Ken game. Lost Paradise.
Mm.
It's a great game for real. That's because I'm a huge Fist fanboy. It's a great game, and I absolutely had it in English on purpose.
Right.
Because it's
you
Fist.
Want that.
And Fist knows exactly what it is.
Right.
Like there's like a mini game where you put on a doctor's coat and you heal people with the Hokuto no Ken, or you blow up their heads because they're mutant bandits. And it's great.
Well, and there's something wonderful about being self-aware. I mean, that's a thing.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, that's the newest anime I've seen. Came out, I don't know, last year or something. But like I've watched Cowboy Bebop in English and in Japanese. I've watched Samurai Champloo in English and Japanese. Enjoyed them both. And such. So no, it's really down to who I think is the better actor. I will say this: full disclosure, full disclaimer. Years after the fact of getting introduced to Macross Plus and falling in love with it, I met the English dub voice actor for Gold Goa Bowman, and I fanboyed all over his face and his wife's face, and they loved me for it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, because I think she was in it too, if I remember well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's like, yeah, and then if I may continue a little bit.
No, please do.
When it comes to dubs, so another one of my fandoms, Castlevania.
Mm-hmm.
There's a game from the 90s that was on the TurboGrafx 16 named The Rondo of Blood. It's the game that came out before Symphony of the Night. Actually, the ending of Symphony of the Night the beginning of Symphony of the Night is the ending, The Rondo of Blood. And when I first saw the opening, which is very anime, but it's dubbed in German. And ever since I saw that, I was like, every Castlevania game should be in German.
Yeah.
And so
it fits it very well.
When the Castlevania animated show came on Netflix, since Netflix is a worldwide market, I watched it all in English, and then I turned around and watched it again in German, and it is awesome.
That's fair.
So fucking cool. And now I'm actually like with the new series that came out, the first season came out. It takes place in France, so I need to watch it in French. But but no, it's so cool.
Right.
Like finally, my Castlevania fanboydom has come to fruition. So happy.
That is awesome. It's interesting you mentioned like other franchises and things like that, because James and I watched Takeshi's Castle, which is known in America as the most extreme challenge, and it was a rather famous redub in the 90s that was showed on Spike TV and stuff.
Okay.
But it is you were talking about things that were self-aware, and it's a game show. And the game show is a bunch of people go through these bizarre, silly challenges. And, some things are, slimy. You have to slide down the slimy ramp and not hit the correct door, and, things like that. And I mean, it's stupid. It's like if you took, what is it? Ninja Warrior, one of those shows.
Right.
But dumbed the system down enough that the average Joe could do it, but most of the people would get knocked out by something dumb.
Oh yeah. I've totally seen this show.
Yeah, so trying to explain it, and it has a subplot where they have a couple of guys who were dressed in kimono who would make jokes in between. And the original show here in America was dubbed over by voice actors, and they didn't even bother. They didn't even bother to read a script or anything. They just were telling jokes that were funny. But you could clearly see that they were off on their own little tangents, because they would rename all the contestants to, stupid names like, So it was funny, it was cute, and it's one of Troy's and my favorite shows from the 90s. Well, somewhere along the line, they did an updated version in Japan, and James and I watched it in Japanese. And we love it because it's just as stupid, but it's scripted. Like, it's intentionally dumb. And
Right.
moreover, the actors are trying to play the part, but aware of how stupid it is.
But
So
they know
they
what
end
you're
up
tuning in for.
right. But I mean, it's like, and so they will say things like, they're, the contestants are only 4 steps away from the castle. Are you concerned, castle owner? And the castle owner is like, the castle's right across the street there, right? I mean, that they're right now all at the hot dog stand eating hot dogs. So, I mean, yes, but you're supposed to pretend like you're caring. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. Yes, I'm very, that kind of stuff. Like
Mhm.
the actors break character to make stupid jokes about the fact that they're on this TV show. And it
Right.
actually is very entertaining and very funny. And apparently that's what the original show was in the 90s too. Self-aware. The characters would break fourth wall all the time and talk to each other about how, here is this challenge. The challenge was a bunch of balloons. Not really much of a challenge, right? Like, that kind of stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but it was also more genuine, oddly. I found the Japanese version to be just as funny, but watching what the actors were doing, originally I was almost offended in a
Right.
way when I found out that MXC was not scripted based on the scripts from the show.
Right.
Because as a 20-year-old, we were watching Japanese stuff come over here and get redubbed all the time
Yeah.
by people who just bought the show for 20 bucks and a cookie, and all they wanted to do was throw something on Saturday morning for cheap.
Hmm.
And so we had
Yeah.
seen that's where Robotech came from. That's where Star Blazers came from, Speed Racer. All of those they just bought them and threw some dub actors in front of them and said pretty much just make it work,
Hmm.
and nobody cared.
Yep.
And it wasn't until the 90s, when the mid 90s and almost 2000s, before people started caring about
Right.
the franchises they were taking on.
Hmm.
And it was one of the things that Sailor Moon made a major impact on, because they brought Sailor Moon over and immediately dumbed it down for American audiences, and there was a massive backlash,
Right.
and they weren't expecting it. And so I was in this belief that MXC was not aware, like the people who made it on Spike TV, they weren't aware. And so they just made it dumb.
Hmm.
And it was funny, and it was definitely funny, but it was dumb. And the dub was obviously a dub.
Hmm.
I mean, like it was almost like whenever you redub a Godzilla movie, but you just start making jokes about it through the entire time. He looks like
Right.
he's rubber. He looks like he's a rubber monster suit.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then I watched it in Japanese and I realized, no, that's what it's like in Japanese too. And that's part of the charm of the show.
Hmm.
And they're actually cognizant and aware that some of these characters are, the actors are overacting the part, and the people who are not overacting the part. There's like 2 different types of actors in the show. They're the ones who bought in 190% and are overacting and becoming ridiculous. And then there's the main announcers who are like, well, we just get a paycheck to come here every day, sort of thing. And that's their attitude. And so it makes it very fun. And it's the same kind of way that we saw the dub. So it's interesting because now I'm starting to, in my elder age, kind of come around to there's a place for dubs. And there's even a place for the stupid dubs. Now,
Right.
I
I
have
mean,
always loved
yeah.
Fist of the North Star for its dub.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's a different story.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But I mean, remember, I mean, also, speaking of, one can still take care and do a stupid dub.
Oh, sure.
Like the people who did the voice acting for the game, they know what they're there for, what they're doing here. But like, I remember even back in the old days, Pine Salad Productions, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Like those
right?
people absolutely just watched the crap out of those episodes, came up with all the best gags they could, and just jammed them in, and we're having a great time doing it.
But that was
But I do
also sort
understand
of
how, like,
done with love. I mean,
yeah,
like
and
it was the fans,
yeah, but also I also do understand what you're saying. It's like, even especially back in the day, it was like you watch dubbed anime, like what's fucking wrong with you,
right?
you know? And actually, this I've been reading this book named Goth. It's a little
Goth.
bit memoir. It's a little bit kind of history of. It's written by the drummer for The Cure,
Ah,
who, and it's his second book, and his first book was named Cured, and it was
okay.
about his experiences with The Cure. But I recently read this part, and I was like, oh yeah, that's totally true. And he says, and he's talking about the Bat Cave. If you're not in the know, Google it. It is a famous, very early London goth club, the
You'll have to put
Batcave.
in Batcave and Goth.
Yeah. The policy of the Batcave was clear. Anyone could enter. No matter how packed it got, there was no gatekeeper at the door admitting the cool kids while turning away the plaid shirts. If you had £3 to enter and 70 pence for a can of lager, that was it. You're in. At play was a basic truth. When outcasts start casting out others, they basically become their own kind of establishment.
Mm-hmm. That's a
And
great quote.
I'm like, bam, perfect. And I get that too, because yeah, we totally did that, and now it's sort of like, I mean, you can engage with it how you will, you know,
Sure.
love it
Sure.
how you will.
And everything that I do now is a different thing. I prefer to watch them in Japanese because, and this is something that is a frustration for me. I have been working on learning Japanese now for 30 years and I'm still not fluent in it. And that probably just either chalks up to ADD not being able to focus long enough on it, or I'm just bad at languages. But either one of those, I will learn Japanese. It's just going to be, I will probably speak fluently 3 days before my death
Hmm.
because of the fact that,
You will fluently put down your death poem and be
right?
like,
And then pass away,
perfect.
right? This is obviously going to be the way this is going down. But now I watch everything in Japanese as much as I can, just so that I'm still working on that language.
Mhm.
But like I
Yeah.
said before, we had an elitism back in the day because there were people who, and I'm almost, that statement makes me think of something else because it's a great statement. Every fandom is about love. And the greatest crime that you can commit against that fandom is to fail to love that thing.
Mm.
And the more I think about this, the more I think about that passing through to Trekkies, that passing through to the Star Wars fans. I really enjoyed Acolyte. I very much enjoyed the Acolyte.
My child and I just finished watching it.
And I very much enjoyed the questions that it started asking about the Jedi. However, Kevin is our resident Star Wars nut, and he was downright offended that they turned the Jedi into bad guys. And so, and I'm sitting there going, I don't think they turned them into bad guys. I think they started questioning sort of an elite function of the Jedi that should have been asked a long time ago.
Yeah.
Why aren't you letting them get married? Why aren't you letting them form attachments?
Yeah.
Why aren't you letting them do these things? Why?
Yeah.
What part of your philosophy says that you can't do that?
And some of those questions were being raised, I mean, in the original trilogy a little bit, and then also in the prequel trilogy,
Yep.
which said person purports to love.
Right.
And it's like, here's one thing. I laugh, I cackle, because there's a science fiction podcaster. God, what's his name? I want to say Damian Walter, something like that.
Okay.
There's some interesting stuff, and he actually put out relatively recently a thing about the Acolyte.
Mm-hmm.
And his thing is like, people are hating on the Acolyte, and I don't see why. Oh, he goes, no, actually, let me think about it a little bit. Okay, I know why. And he's like, this is this comes from a problem that Star Wars has because it's so old.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, it's dated and everything. It's like, no. That as you said before, the fans have become a certain age. And so do the people making Star Wars, I don't care if it's Disney or Lucas or whomever, do the people making Star Wars try to cater to the old fans, or do they try to make new fans?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, and he posited that Acolyte is Star Wars for kids. It's Star Wars actually for people my daughter's age, who is just entering adolescence.
That's funny because I felt like it hit me pretty solid too.
There's definitely stuff for people our age, but
Yeah.
it's like, this is Star Wars for people her age,
Right.
because the main character is a person a little bit older than they are,
Mm-hmm.
just older enough to be aspirational. And
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's me and Luke Skywalker and Han Solo when I was a kid.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
check.
Hey, Bob.
Yep. Yo, Bob. And he's like, and these are problems that people that age are facing. Do you trust your authority figures?
Mm-hmm.
Do you trust your family? What is your place in the world? You work toward this one thing, but it's not what you're doing. Is that okay? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually said flat out, he goes, and so like the middle-aged men are hating on this because it's not for them.
Right.
And he goes, but on the other hand, I mean, Star Wars and the Disney, who owns them, is large enough that you can have adult Star Wars. He goes, middle-aged men who hate Acolyte, they should be watching Andor, because
Right.
Andor is about stuff that many middle-aged men give a shit about.
Right. Right. Right.
And I'm
Which
like,
makes sense that they're trying to branch out on that.
yeah. And I thought that was a really interesting way to put it, because I hadn't thought of it quite that way.
Right.
And my daughter really enjoyed Acolyte. We were
Yeah.
hoping it'd be a season 2, and then we were told there wasn't gonna be. Like, we're sad now.
Yeah, we're sad now. But I am also noticing that the arguments made by Kevin are the same arguments I hear from Trekkies about the newest Star Treks, which is, it is clear no one loves the franchise. That's what they're taking. That's their takeaway. And I'm starting to kind of, as in, like, somebody just comes in and all they want to do is just make prettier starships or prettier sword fights, or, they want to do their version of a sword fight. And I keep thinking about when J.J. Abrams took over the Star Trek franchise, he went on Jon Stewart to talk about it. And the first thing he said was, oh, I've never really been a fan of Star Trek. I'm a Star Wars guy. And then he said, so when I did blah, 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 and he talked on, and then there was this pause, and Jon Stewart said, I'm sorry, I tuned out everything after. I really never liked Star Trek, and I hope that wasn't I'm sorry that you said after that.
Right?
Because it was like, why would you go on national TV and admit that you don't care for the franchise that you're about to take on? And I think that one interview right there broke the Kelvin verse for a lot of Trekkies, myself included. I feel like the movie that I will not name is one that I will never watch ever again if I can avoid it, simply because I do feel like they didn't care. They just
I will
wanted
say
to put
this:
Benedict Cumberbatch in there and stuff.
as a non-Trekkie, I'm not a Trekkie.
Yeah.
I've watched some Star Trek. I have enjoyed it.
Sure.
But I'm not a Trekkie.
Which is fine.
And I will say that the 2 movies that J.J. Abrams did are terrible movies. They're just terrible.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not invested in Star Trek as Star Trek.
Right.
And I'm just like, wow, these movies are just bad.
Right.
I think, and then here's the thing, I'm not apologizing, and I'm just speculating here. I don't know what was in the man's head. But I think the reason why he said it and could get away with it, honestly, is because there's more non-Star Trek fans than there are Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
And so he was, as a marketing ploy, it could be seen as, was saying to people who aren't Star Trek fans, I'm not a Star Trek fan. I love Star Wars. I made these movies. Come check it out.
Right.
That's what I think.
And that, yes, it totally is. But I
Um,
realized that a lot of
but it's
this
still
is
kind of a
about
shitty move.
but but even if you're not a Trekkie, you could still make a good movie. I'm pretty sure you could have, but
He could have made. You can make good movies that probably don't feel quite Star Trek, but still be good movies.
right.
And then fans would be like, you know what? That movie was pretty cool, but not really Star Trek.
Right. We're getting a Section 31 movie that's looking very similar like that. Like I can't see what's Star Trek about this movie, but I'll watch it anyway because it's got Michelle Yeoh in it.
So that's awesome.
And that's pretty cool. And she's a riot no matter which way she does it. When she does her version of the pres or the doesn't really matter anyway. I'm having aphasia on the name all of a sudden. When she does her character, it's a riot. She's really good at what she does. Of course she is, because
She's a
she's
pro.
Michelle Yeoh. But it is something to think about, and that is the most concern that people have about a fandom is whether the people who are producing the fandom have care. Leonard Nimoy was known, very much known, as literally the keeper of the fandom. He would quit a job if you didn't follow Star Trek's ideals. And he was known for that. It's part of the reason why he wanted out at the end of Star Trek 2 was because it was exhausting. And he came back because he realized the fans really wanted him there to keep an eye on things. We're getting sort of the same kind of things now with Tawny Newsome, who's doing the same thing. She's Mariner from Lower Decks. She's also a keeper of the faith, so to speak.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I want to let's go to sponsors, and then I want to kind of talk about this a little bit more.
yeah, let's go to
I got a couple
sponsors
things
real
to
quick
say.
because I want to comment on this because this is something. Now we've hit something that you and I are interested in. All right, but what we're also interested in is our sponsors because Geek Tank is sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, The Massage Wizard, and Your
Tu
Mom.
madre.
All right.
Now, when it comes to the love of the game, so to speak, I see where you're coming from, and I think it's fairly obvious. I honestly think it's fairly obvious when there is no love there.
Where?
Where there's no love in the people who are carrying on the fandom. I would go out on a limb, like to use an example from the 90s.
Right.
And I'm not shitting on the new one coming out soon because honestly, like in the parlance of the 80s and 90s, it looks fucking sweet. It looks ridiculous, but fucking sweet. It looks like kind of like How I Love This North Star. It is on the one hand fucking ridiculous and worthy of ridicule, and on the other hand, you can't help but fucking cry when certain shit happens because it's like so fucking heartfelt. Anyway, it's so fucking sincere yet ridiculous. Yeah. The
I'm
Crow.
sorry. I must have missed the object of this discussion.
Oh, I'm talking about the when people who don't love a thing are making the thing.
But you're not talking about any specific one.
Well, right now I am. The Crow.
Okay, that's what I was after.
The Crow, and I was saying it's like I went on a little meandering. So the new Crow coming out,
Right.
and it could be total dog shit, like for real.
Right.
Any trailer looks good. I hate watching trailers as a rule because any trailer can look fucking good. I watched the trailer for The Crow because it's kind of fucking sweet. And to think back to the 90s when they adapted the James O'Barr comic, the original comic, to film. I don't know how famous this is, but famously, in the writers' room, on the sets and everything, people would be like, "Okay, this is what we're going to do," and Brandon Lee would pull out a copy of the comic and go, "No, this is what we're going to try to do." It's like this shot here, and I know we should do this shot because it's like it's storyboarded in the comic for us. Let's do this. That kind of thing. And I think now, once again, I'm not a Star Trek fan, But from what you've told me as a Star Trek fan, there is love there.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Star Wars. I have not been keeping up with Star Wars stuff because I have other interests.
Sure.
I can't just watch every single fucking show that's come out or have gone out. But
Nobody has
having
asked you
watched
to.
having watched the first couple seasons of The Mandalorian, having watched a little bit of the Ben Kenobi show, having watched Acolyte, gonna go watch Andor soon. Many of the people on these production teams love the source material.
Right.
Borderlands, 20 fucking writers. There ain't no
Oh, yeah.
love there. One of those writers is one of my favorite fucking authors. Joe Abercrombie touched that script. And I'm still not going to watch that turd.
It is brutal. And it is going down in flames.
Yeah,
It's horrible.
and like there's no love, there's no understanding. Like when it comes to like large, broad, deep universes, Star Wars, Star Trek, there's a lot of different types of stories to be told there. And just because a particular story doesn't hit with you, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be meant for you. It might not be something that you want to do. I get it. But to accuse it of not having love behind it, to me, that's gatekeeping. I think that most of the like, if you look at the people who are doing the things, they are, as you say, fighting to be on that production team, dreaming of being in that production team.
Oh yeah,
And then,
yeah.
And then to
I see
say
what you're
that,
saying.
oh well, they have to, they don't love it. It's like, no, they just don't love it like you do. They see something different than you do, and that's okay.
Right. But
So,
and to extend what I was trying to say before, because I think I went out on a different. When we talk about the actual love and the concern that you have for that, it is that statement that J.J. Abrams made. Oh, I don't particularly care for Star Trek. Really, this is just my vehicle to get to Star Wars. Well, okay, but you just took my thing. Same thing with anime. When it first came out, the dubs had no love in them. They were just supposed to be a vehicle to put fill in a space on Saturday morning. And now you're seeing, and that was the thing. When you get to the Macross Plus dub and some of the other dubs that are out there, you're starting to see people who are like, well, now wait a minute, let's take this a little bit more seriously. And that's a different feel.
mhm.
One of the things is, one of my ongoing rules is I tend to always watch anime in Japanese unless otherwise noted. There are some exceptions. I will always watch Kiki's in English. And it's because Phil Hartman ran off the rails as Gigi and did some of the most hysterical lines.
I
And
did not
they
know he was
weren't in the
involved in
original
that
script.
dub. I love Phil Hartman. Thank you for the info.
Right? So yeah, he's the cat. It makes it awesome. And of course, because Disney was required to do it right because of the nature of their contract, they got Kirsten Dunst to read Kiki's part. And so the people who are there are really good. Nausicaa, the only reason I watch Nausicaa in Japanese all the time is because that was one of my first. But the dub, the main character Yupa, is played by Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart himself. And so, like, it's a 50-50 as to whether I watch it in English or in Japanese, because that's so amazing.
Yeah.
But it's, when we say love, it's not, when I say love, I'm saying, did the people care, or were they just there for the paycheck?
Mm-hmm.
Are they, I mean, because like, it's okay to be there for the paycheck and love it.
Yeah,
But,
of course.
I mean, obviously it's, everybody needs to be there for a paycheck. And I hear people defend themselves with, hey, I've got to make a living. Well, sure. But if you're not and there was like the same thing. It's one of those things you can kind of tell what happens when you listen to the backstories behind the Star Trek actors. Like TNG, when it came into TNG, you hear the stories of Patrick Stewart coming on board and going, I had no idea what this was. It was a gig. They liked what I was bringing to the table, so I brought that to the table. And the first season, I was completely stuck up and a ridiculous asshole, and all the rest of the crew hated me because I was a Shakespearean actor on this set. And all of these guys were playing spacesuit people.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't understand what was going on. And then by second season and third season, he starts loosening up and realizing what his role was in a much larger universe.
Right. And then the
And that shifted.
Shakespearean becomes a tool.
Right.
And you can just whip it out once in a while for maximum effect, but not be all the time. I get that.
Right. Whereas you look at Will Wheaton, and Will Wheaton, to him, this was the pinnacle of his career. He was a Trekkie. I make this comment all the time. Will Wheaton is 2 days younger or 2 days older than I am. His birthday is 2 days before mine. So
wow.
we are the same age exactly. I mean, within 2 days of the same age. So
I'll allow it.
right. Thanks. So, but the problem or not the problem, but he gets on the set and he's in Star Trek. You know, he grew up with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And here he is piloting the ship. He's piloting the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurts him when people say, "Shut up, Wesley." That hurts him and part of the reason he left the franchise was because the Trekkies turned on him and didn't think he was part of the system.
Right.
But he was one of the ones who loved the show. And when you talk now to the Strange New Worlds actors, Anson Mount, who's playing Pike in Strange New Worlds, he's a Trekkie. And he is every day wakes up just completely beside himself that he is playing Captain Christopher Pike.
Sure, yeah.
And he doesn't even he posts all the time on Instagram going, I thank every star I have that I am playing in Star Trek as the captain of the Enterprise. I can't even, it's beyond my comprehension. You know, this is an unbelievable dream job.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the contrast between the way that Patrick Stewart took being Picard
mm-hmm.
and the way Anson Mount has taken being Pike,
mm-hmm.
and look at the difference between the two. And that's what people are afraid of, is that you end up with a bunch of people who they're just here to get a paycheck. They're just here to do a job. They kick out a script every so often that, I don't know, space age, light swords, things, whatever. We got it kind of going. But, I had this dream the other night about vacuum cleaners. So I did the entire script kind of alluding to vacuum cleaners. And you're like, what does this have to do with anything?
Right.
And it's not a matter of gatekeeping so much as worried that the people who have it in their hands are going to ruin it because they dreamed about vacuum cleaners last night, or whatever. They wanted to bring in their own weird little agenda that has nothing to do with anything. That's why I was saying I think I feel real sad for Kevin, because I think he missed it. They actually were asking some very deep questions about stuff.
When it came in, if we go back to Acolyte in particular, I think I may have mentioned this, maybe just thought it really hard. They made the Jedi more human.
Mm-hmm.
And alien races, shut the fuck up. It's humans. It's people.
Right.
It's people and with people concerns. And so
none of the actors cared. I can't believe Bob went and saw it. Oh
my God. Thanks, Bob. We
thanks for falling on the sword for us,
we
Bob.
Acknowledge your noble sacrifice,
right,
of time and money.
We raise our glasses.
But hey, at least it wasn't as bad as New Nightmare, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, no, it's and another story. Considering I think I've watched all.
I totally derailed you, Alex. I'm so sorry.
No. I think about having watched pretty much all of the extended edition commentaries for Lord of the Rings, because I loves me a good commentary. Is that Viggo Mortensen didn't know what Lord of the Rings was.
Right.
Like, he was like, oh yeah, my agent wants me to do Lord of the Rings, and his son is like, you gotta do Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And then with his son being so fervent about it, he read it and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a lot of meat to this role. I can totally do this and do something different and have a great time and blah 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 blah. And grew into the role. I mean, imagine like, and I understand being worried that something's not going to be caretaken. I mean, I'm a fucking Dark Tower fan, and the actual creator just shat all over it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how to say it? It's imagine if with the immediate responses people have, and there's multiple people looking on all the socials and all the trends. Imagine if after 8 episodes, not even like a third of the full season of Star Trek TNG came out, and people were hating on Patrick Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kill him off at the end of the first season. He's contracted for season 1, and they had a new captain.
Right.
In an alternate timeline, that happens.
That happens.
And you don't have fucking Jean-Luc Picard at the helm for almost a decade. And like I said, I'm not a Star Trek fan, but I feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen a lot of great fucking Patrick Stewart on TNG, and the world is better for it.
Yeah. Tapestry. So, Tapestry was an episode where Q changed the timeline, so Picard was just Lieutenant Picard.
I remember that one. I've seen that one.
Yep. So,
unlike Buffy, I've seen lots of great episodes of Star Trek.
And Tapestry is a great episode of Star Trek.
Yeah. Like, okay, here's the joke, people. I've only seen a handful of episodes of Buffy. A handful. And the only good one I've ever seen is the musical episode.
It's beautiful.
It's fantastic.
It's so
Every
beautiful.
Other episode I've seen have literally been the worst episode of that season. I was living with this guy, that guy over there, and I'm not doing a dojo thing, or I'm not doing a club thing, or I'm going to leave later. Yeah, I'll watch this episode with you. And I'm like, it's the Dracula episode.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, why the fuck do you guys watch this piece of shit show? I'd rather be hitting my dick with a hammer.
Right.
Not for real. I
right.
value it. But like, hyperbolically speaking, what the fuck, guys? This show is awful.
Right. Well, and to be fair, Buffy was very hit and miss. Some episodes were brilliant, and some episodes were just trash.
And I would almost always sit down and watch an episode with y'all, and
when it was the trash ones.
Have a trash episode and be like,
but you'll notice that even though people who like Buffy, they don't tend to grab other people and say, you've got to sit down and see this show.
Right.
Because there were some really there were TV trope breaking episodes of Buffy that changed the way television worked, the way that television shows were made. And all of this stuff.
Like I've seen, like I said, like I've seen things with Star Trek and enjoyed it.
Sure.
And it's
one of those things.
But there were some great episodes there that you would totally miss out of. And if you didn't miss out, it'd be very different without Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc.
Right. And I'm not, by the way, saying that in fact, I personally love all of the new Star Treks. I hear people complain about Discovery, and the biggest thing I can see about Discovery is, unlike the rest of the shows here, Discovery had enough episodes to be hit and miss. So some of the episodes did miss, and there are episodes that I'm like, I probably won't put those on my rewatch necessarily. Yeah. But there's a lot of episodes out there. Spock's Brain is one that I'm never going to put on rewatch because it's just bleh.
Yeah.
Who likes that? Yeah. And that's from the original series.
My favorite show, Twin Peaks.
Right.
Season 2, there are some utter dogs of episodes.
Right.
Like, I have told people, if you're going to watch this on your own, you might want to stop at this point, because there's a bunch of episodes that are just horse shit after that.
Yeah.
And it gets better later on, but honestly, who's got that kind of time?
Right. And of course, in my day, I've probably seen Spock's brain 3,000 times, just like everything else, because of it. But on the flip side, I won't voluntarily watch it if I can avoid it. You know what I mean? Like there are episodes, all the way through where it's like, there's 880 episodes of Star Trek right now.
Yeah.
I can miss 100 of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's a bunch of them I can just dump right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Right. I don't ever need to see those again.
Yeah.
And so it's not a matter of that per se. I think the problem and the concern is when a series gets added to the canon on things that becomes a thing. Like the great example of this is in the movie that we will not name, where they come up with a site-to-site transporter that can go halfway across the galaxy.
Right?
That broke Star Trek.
Such bullshit. At the end of the movie, to explore strange worlds. Shut the fuck up.
You don't need it anymore. Just beam places now.
Yeah, fuck
We
off.
just beam from Starfleet Academy.
I don't know if
beam
I've said
people
this
to other
before.
planets.
And
There's
if
a
I have,
problem, beam them back.
I will say it again. J.J. Abrams, as much as he can make movies that are watchable for the vast majority of people, does not care
right
about things making sense.
Right. But
he cares about making
that is
cool
the concern.
Scenes,
so when we talk about but when we talk about love of things, that's the things we're worried about. And it's one of those things. As soon as you add that changes the story concept already. You change one of the fundamental chess pieces of the world, so to speak. And that's a problem. That is an issue that people have, and understandable.
Well,
and you do have them all on your server, Brent.
Yar. Like when it comes, I mean, I get it. Like I used to be a huge comic book fan. I'm still a fan of things, but I have given up necessarily being a slave to the canon over the last several years.
Fair.
Because you miss out on a lot of really cool things. I thought it was really interesting that in Acolyte, they had she grabbed the lightsaber and it's blue, and now it turns red because she's totally going that way. I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
That's kind of cool.
Now, does that obviate like, I'm Anakin Skywalker and I'm totally not going to the dark side. See, my lightsaber's fine. As opposed to, oh, look, it's starting to turn red. Wait a second, get him. Right. Like it's like I was talking to another friend of ours recently, and I was saying how one of the things I absolutely love about Spider-Verse 2, Across the Spider-Verse, is that the big bad guy, Miguel, Spider-Man 2099, yeah, he's a fashy authoritarian puke. It's there. It's in the text of the film. But I love how they put the language of entitled fans in his fucking mouth. We have to save the canon. We have to save the canon. The canon's we can't lose this world because the canon.
Right.
Shut the fuck up.
Well, it is interesting because canon, of course, CANON, is a religious term for Christianity.
Yep. The acceptable.
Right. Things. It's the correct, and so it is talking about the larger, it's talking about almost a religious fanaticism, which I'm not going to lie. I have often said my religion is Star Trek. And I mean that in a calm and gentle way, much like people who are calm and gentle in all religions, because there are calm and gentle Christians out there who are not insane, but there are also insane Christians.
Dude, I used to quote the Dark Tower series like the Bible.
Oh, I totally said something last night during my stream. I made a mistake and I said, oh, I made a mistake. I had forgotten the face of my father. And I thought of you immediately.
Whose guns I wish to someday bear. Yeah.
As soon as I said it, I'm like, Alex would have been so proud of me.
I would have been so proud of you. But no, it's like I used to quote that like the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I get it. Like, 'cause I've been there. I've been that guy.
You've been that guy.
Been that guy.
And
Let that shit
now
go.
I love Star Trek, and I will watch all Star Trek. And if they kind of tweak with canon, I go, meh, I'm okay with that.
Is it interesting?
Right, exactly. I'm like, was I entertained? Were there pretty spaceships? I'm pretty
Yeah.
much here for it.
Yeah. Or was
You know?
it completely loveless and a guy trying to get onto Star Wars who decided to just sort of string some shit together and not give a fuck about how things were even, not even with the universe at large, but internally to the story he's telling.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. You can change canon, but if you're Leonard Nimoy and you change canon, that's okay, because I know he's going somewhere internally in the system. If you're J.J. Abrams, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably a distinction that people don't make.
Yeah.
They just get stuck on canon being canon.
Yeah.
And not that Alex Kurtzman, who is in charge of Star Trek, is also a Trekkie.
Yeah.
And so when he's making changes to the world and to the universe and to canon, he's holding to his internal structure of Star Trek as he knows it. And so there's a little bit of you got to give him some room to breathe here. And it's the same thing as what you were just saying before. It's like, that's that same thing. You can love something and change something because it's something you feel is important. And we're just worried, really, honestly, that you're J.J. Abrams and making site-to-site transporters that go across the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're really worried about.
Yeah, I remember like I think it was the movie That Shall Not Be Named, where it's like, we need to put this bomb in this volcano, and I'm like, isn't that easier to like? I was like, wait a second, with today's technology, we can put a payload from anywhere on the planet to anywhere else on the planet, and it just gets easier if you have an orbital platform to do it from. Like, I don't know, a Starship Enterprise, maybe.
Right. You roll it out the
You have to do it. You have to do it in a shuttlecraft and like have the ship underneath a bunch of water, because that's just dumb. Welcome to dumb.
I mean, not like starships couldn't live underwater, but it's still
I
like,
did
why
this
would
cool
you put your ship there?
GI shot. Shut the fuck up, J.J. Abrams. Just shut up.
It was a thing.
Yeah, I get it.
I get it too. I understand. And it's one of those things. I think you are right about a lot of this. And I think as I get older, I get a little bit more relaxed about canon. Certainly. I mean, it still grinds my gears a little bit when you mess up such big pieces of the canon. But
right.
I still think it's funny that when Simon Pegg took over for the third movie, he went out there and said, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the last movie that we're just going to pretend like never happened. Because he's also a Trekkie. Right. He's been waiting to get onto Star Trek forever. He wants to play Scotty because he's Scottish, and that sounds like a thing he can do.
Like, oops, all that stuff broke. So sorry.
Right. And he really wants, It's
like a video game. It's like, oh, I was doing all this stuff with this character, and now, oh, their shit broke. Oh, I need to get all their shit again.
Yep. So, well, the first J.J. Abrams movies isn't horrible.
It's horrible.
It's just
counterpoint. Horrible.
Right. Alex thinks it's horrible, and I think it's passable. It is passable. I will watch it. The second one was a vehicle for Benedict Cumberbatch, so that they could bring
more
him in.
money. He needed more fame,
and so they brought him in to play, of all people, Khan, which not only was that insulting to Ricardo Montalban, but they told the fans, no, we are definitely not bringing in Benedict Cumberbatch to play Khan. That would be a horrible thing for us to do. And then he was Khan. And the problem is they whitewashed the character. Not only is Khan supposed to be Middle Eastern, for one, but the person who played him was Mexican. And so at least in Star Trek's original iteration, they found somebody of color to play his part, which was at least better than just making some white guy and putting makeup on him and saying he was Middle Eastern. But that was part of it. And we were like, no, wait a minute, did you just literally whitewash a character in Star Trek? Of all franchises, of all the franchises out there, you whitewashed a character? Oh my God. And I mean, like, that's just insulting, because Trekkies have been pushing for racial equality since the very beginning. And we've been shown it since the day that Uhura took the helm in original series, you know? And so that was such an insult. The third one wasn't bad. The third
I
one
never
was
watched
taken
it.
over by Simon Pegg and his crew. And Simon, of course, is also Trekkie. And in fact, they always joke about when they're on the plane traveling to different locations, Simon and Carl Urban will go back and forth on trivia to see who can out trivia each other. Because
Nice.
apparently Urban's also a Trekkie.
Right on. That's cool.
So like they both sit there and try to like nail each other with Trek trivia. And that's what they do the entire flight. It drives everybody else nuts.
Cool.
But they are the Trekkies, and you find them everywhere. And it's nice to have Trekkies in charge. So the third one wasn't bad. None of the three of them have the feel to me of a Star Trek show, so I don't watch it as much. But I won't watch that second one ever. I'm offended. I think I'm most offended by whitewashing Khan. That's probably for the benefit of putting in Benedict Cumberbatch. And it just drives me crazy. It's like when they whitewashed Makoto Kusanagi. They whitewashed her too. And I'm like, you could have found any number of wonderful Asian actresses, but you wanted ScarJo because she would have brought in money. And I'm like, I just have a real problem with that. I mean, not with ScarJo, but and you know, people have made good counterpoint arguments about that one too, which was, you know, Makoto Kusanagi, the major, she's put into different bodies for what she needs to be having done anyway. So who's to say she wasn't put in some white girl's body? You know, that's the argument. But I mean, the major isn't. Nope. Yes, you're correct. It was after the third one that Yelchin died, which is why the fourth one's going to be complicated because they don't know what they're going to do without Chekhov. That's a big part of that.
All right. Well, I'll get into why I hate the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie at a later time. I would like to go watch Shogun before going to bed tonight.
That's fair. And I'm going to go to my stream now. But thank you for this. Actually turned out, it's funny because we got into the green room and Alex and I are like sitting there like,
what are we talking about?
What are we going to talk about?
I don't know.
What are we going to talk about? I don't know. And we ended up talking about something interesting. Thank you very much, my friend. I always appreciate talking to you. Good night, Bob. Thank you for being here. And Brent, I'll probably see you on the other side here in just a minute. But unfortunately, as usual, that is all the time that we have for today. And I'm going to have to get going once I figure out which button I have to push. Okay, now I got the button. Until next time, I've been Guy.
And I've been Alex.
And this is Geek Tank.